business can't really thrive well without security. And that is why this next conversation is about southeast of Nigeria. We spoke about that last year, southeast security, security in the southeast region. But we are paying particular attention to the Enugu model. Now, of course, the entire southeast has been plagued with issues like, some separatist agitations, violent crime, clashes between various sectors, kidnapping, and the rest of it. Of course, this has hindered economic activity significantly, discouraged investment, and displaced many, many communities. Let's have conversations this morning with the Chairman, Enugu State Security Trust Fund, Dr. Ike Chioke. Dr. Ike Chioke joins us here in the studio. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Aya. It's a pleasure.
To a good extent, I'm sure that you know how many people feel about the Southeast and the fact that while the people themselves are very, very industrious, the insecurity in the area kind of discourages the industrious people of the Southeast to industrialize the Southeast region. How does that come across to you?
Well, very true. There's a quote by Robert McNamara that security is development and development is security. And you sort of see the situation we are faced with in the Southeast, where you're dealing with people that are known for industry, known for enterprise, known for resourcefulness. But years of neglect in terms of development has also created a vacuum, so to speak, that the elements of insecurity had seemingly overwhelmed the region, as you saw over the last few years, especially starting in 2021 when IPOB declared the sit-at-home situation. And that sort of continued until recently for Enugu State when Governor Peter Mbah came in and put a stop to it. And things have settled down. But you still find that the region is still grappling with not just separatist agitation, but other forms of criminality, like, cultism, cybercrime, herder farmer conflicts, political thuggery, you see that, armed robbery. And of course, the menace of the day that's affecting all of Nigeria, kidnapping. So all of that has combined to create quite a cocktail of insecurity that is dampening investment, not just in the Southeast, but indeed across Nigeria.
But quick one before we go to the Enugu model.
Yes.
When you said neglect, by whom?
Well, I mean, the facts speak for themselves, but I think since after the Civil War, the level of development in the Southeast region has not been on par with the rest of Nigeria, and those facts are there. If you use data like the number of federal parastatals in the region compared to other regions of Nigeria. But that's one aspect of neglect. The other aspect of neglect has been the leadership choices. The choices of governors that we've had over many decades have compounded the situation. So rather than seeking to do the best they can with the resources available and also encourage their people to do more, some have sort of fallen behind and said, oh, it's Abuja's fault, and that's why we're behind. But more recently, I think you can see that Peter Mbah has come in and brought sort of a new momentum in Enugu, so to speak. And you see the same thing happening in Abia State with Alex Oti. So once the leadership recognizes that no matter how small the funds available are, I can do something with it, I can leverage it, I can get more people to focus and work together, then it doesn't really matter so much what the federal does, so long as it's not one of blocking development.
I was trying hard not to go apolitical, because I mean, when you said neglect and you began to mention political leaders, I'm like, hey, since 1999, we've had senators, we've had members of the House of Reps, and we have governors from the Southeast. But let's leave that. Let's talk about the Enugu model.
Let's leave politics aside. Yes.
Let's talk about the Enugu model.
Yes.
Talk to us about, when you say the Enugu model, what are the elements?
Well, Last year, the governor inaugurated the Enugu State Security Trust Fund and made my humble self the chairman. And what we have come up with is a model that is working as a public-private partnership between government and the people and the trust fund. And we are seeking ways to support government in its effort of development. Because like I said at the beginning of this program, development is security. Security is development. Without security, you can't really develop. And so the governor's rolled out really ambitious plans to move the economy of the state from $4.4 billion, which he met, to $30 billion by the time he leaves office, assuming 2 terms. That's a very tall ambition. But already, I can say that what he's achieved in less than 2 years are probably more than what we saw happen in the state in the last 8 years prior to his coming. So the momentum is there. Now, to get everyone focused on development, you then need people to take ownership and go back to the basics of things like civic duty and responsibility, and then focus on the non-kinetic aspects of insecurity. Because people think security is all about, show of force, equip the military, equip the police, and let them go and shoot the hooligans. No, there's a whole lot more we can do in terms of educating our youth about the challenges of insecurity. There's a lot we can do in organizing our vigilante teams. If you decide to put 10 or 20 members in every village, every ward, you need to organize them. You need to make sure they don't take advantage of being vigilantes and become criminals themselves. You need to give them equipment and tools, so make sure that if they get injured in the line of duty, they are taken care of in the hospital, or worse, if they die in the line of duty, that there's someone to take after their family. And those are areas where we can come in as a collective and support government in that effort. Often people think of security from an individual aspect. Oh, I'm secure. So some big man comes into the airport and he's got a Hilux with mobile police guarding his car. But that's fine. But you need to move from individual security to collective security, and maybe people now block a street and put a vigilante at the end of the street to make sure criminals don't come in at night. But imagine a scenario where you have entire community security. They've come together and said, it's not just the street. We want to ensure that this whole neighborhood is secure. And that comes by the combination of a government that is working proactively for the people, and then the people who recognize that it's their civic duty and responsibility to protect the assets, the investment that's coming already on ground.
You took the next question out of my mouth, actually.
I did that? Okay.
Yeah, because on the one hand is the role of the leaders,
yes,
the so-called leaders, the governors, the commissioners, your good self, and the rest of them. On the other side is the people.
Correct.
What role they have, and you've talked about the communities taking ownership. But I'm looking at the map of Enugu State right now, of Nigeria, and the southeast in particular. I'm seeing that Enugu State is bordered by 3 other southeast states: Anambra, Abia, Ebonyi.
Correct.
Specifically. Now,
and to the north, Kogi.
And no, I'm talking about the southeast.
Okay, all right.
I'm just skipping it there. So now, if Enugu is secure, as you put it,
yes,
and the communities are taking ownership,
correct,
how are we managing the borders? Because there are those who believe that, okay, my state is secure, other states may not be secure, and the rest of them. But there is no way, if you pour water on one spot, it's not just going to stay there. It's going to spread one way or the other. If it's oil, it's going to, taper one way or the other. So what's the plan? Is there an interstate conversation to ensure that the work that the Enugu State Securities Trust Fund is doing, yes, insulates it from without?
Well, it's still early days, but obviously the facts are there that if you look at the incident of criminality over the Christmas season, Enugu was quite peaceful. There was no major incident reported, and all the hotels were full. And the data we are seeing now, though we don't have as crystal clear as data as what we saw for Lagos, is that quite a lot of the elite in the neighboring states, Anambra, Ebonyi, Abia, were actually staying in Enugu and traveling to their hometown for day trips and coming back. So that tells you something. The model in Enugu is working. Now, how can we spread it out? And I think that's a conversation that will happen at the Southeast Governors Forum level. But, you know, there have been different methods that have been attempted. You know, there's been a Bubago, Eastern Security Network, and some of them have turned, you know, sort of logic upside down, because we've then had instances of these so-called networks, you know, causing damage to the communities they're supposed to protect. But if the model of a public-private partnership where the citizens come together, contribute funds, and direct it through the chief security officer of the state, who can see from his vantage point the issues and challenges, then in that way resolving them and actually moving to the point where we are preventing criminality rather than doing a fire brigade approach and going after them, then it becomes a model and a template that we can actually replicate across the Southeast. But we've just been 1 year. It will be actually 1 year on the 13th of February since we were inaugurated. And we're having a big launch in fundraising event on the 13th in Enugu to further, you know, build on the momentum we have.
Okay. Speaking specifically,
yes,
how did the Enugu state government put an end, if it has indeed ended, to the sit-at-home menace?
That's a very good question. I mean, one is a determined position by the leadership, you know, that first of all, for me to develop, I need to have security. But I can't have security when half of my staff are not coming to work. You know, the sit-at-home syndrome in Enugu was so painful. I actually withdrew a particular investment I was going to do in the state because I couldn't see how it would work. You couldn't work on Mondays. And then on Fridays, the half of the government goes for funeral and events. So you've lost 2 days of the week. So you come in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe Thursday, people are gone. So to reign control, you can't be the governor of the state and you have no control over your civil service. So what Governor Mba did was, first of all, to work with the police and the military and make sure there were policemen at strategic locations all over the state and said everybody is free to move around, and waited to see who would come out to cause problems. Initially, people were skeptical. Initially, it was in the sort of more sensible areas of Enugu, like GRA, more sort of developed areas like GRA and Independence Layout, and gradually began to spread out. People then sort of, you know, sneakily come out. You know, the issues would be if you can't find public transportation, you can't go anywhere. Gradually, the motor parks were opening up. Keke was available, you know, so you could find a bike to take you somewhere. And suddenly, people have sort of forgotten about it. Yet in some remote regions, some remote villages, you may still have that syndrome of sit-at-home where the kids don't go to school until maybe around 12 midday because of the fact that, you know, the impact of government takes a while to sort of get around everywhere. But that determined focus by Governor Mba was really what helped kill that menace and then got all of us working together once again. Is
that the same model used for the farmer-herder issue? Because that was more in the suburban and rural areas.
The farmer-herder issue was more of information, and that's where the vigilante community becomes prime. You saw there was this really ugly crisis we experienced in December of 2022 in Isuzo. Isuzo is a local government to the north, bordering Kogi State, and at that time we lost about 50 of our citizens because of farmer-herder crisis. It was quite painful. But now, with vigilantes, I think about 20 in each ward, and having early warning systems built in so they can communicate and say, look, we're having incursions by strange people who are moving in drones. And the state has also built a command and control centers, perhaps regarded as the best in the country. The president was there to see it live on the 4th of January. So with that sort of system, the state is quickly able to deploy drones to actually see what is happening and determine the best form of defense and protect that from happening. So that's what we're seeing. There was even a report a couple of weeks ago when we had incursions from Kogi State they had already kidnapped, arrested a keke with 3 passengers, and they're rushing back to the border, to cross the state line. But the local government chairman was able to actually go and block them, because of the early warning system. And that's really what you have to build. Now, if you can replicate that across this entire state, then even in the urban centers, we have situations like right in front of Government House. Opera Square is a very popular square. People come there on Saturdays and on other weekdays to come and work out, and many park their cars. But we had issues of people's cars being, stolen right in front of everyone. But now we have deployed, vigilantes who are just looking like they're working out in the park, but their job is to watch any unusual activity, people trying to, fiddle with the keys of cars and they don't have the right keys to enter. So that's really where you want to get to in terms of security. And those are the things that the citizens can do themselves. Okay. Let me give you a glaring statistics. Nigerian Bureau of Statistics published a report, very damaging. 2.2 trillion naira paid in ransom money between 2023 and middle of 2024 across Nigeria. Did you see that? When we looked at the numbers, the South is apparently 85 billion naira. That's a huge amount of money. That's probably more money than all the 5 states have deployed to security. But that tells you already that we are paying for our negligence, which is really why when we are actually putting out the message about people rising up to contribute towards stopping insecurity, they shouldn't see it as, oh, it's government's problem alone. Okay. What have they done with the security vote? They should see that I need to do something because we're actually paying indirectly.
Absolutely. Kayla. Kayla, I believe you have.
A lot of the things that you're saying about the Southeast, and it's very interesting. I was watching you I think 4 days ago, Mr. Shoke. Can you hear me, sir?
Go ahead, Kayla.
Okay, so I said I was watching you a few days ago where you were talking about collaborations between the Enugu state government and traditional rulers, to handle this insecurity situation in the Southeast. And I want to be able to get you to tell us about that collaboration with traditional rulers and how this can be replicated in other places like Ebonyi, where we're hearing about farmer headsmen clashes, where we are also seeing a lot of these insecurity situations across other states of the Southeast. I've been hearing the Enugu model for almost 15 minutes now. I've been hearing you talk about it. How is that being replicated in other parts of the state? You know what our people say? We didn't help to turn off the fire in our neighbor's house because we love the neighbor. We turned it off so that the fire doesn't come into our own compound as well. So talk to us a bit about that collaboration with traditional rulers and what the Southeast governors are doing to ensure that the insecurity in the whole of the Southeast is brought down to its barest minimum.
Thank you. So last week I held a sensitization meeting with all the royal fathers in the state. I was privileged to have the Commissioner for Chieftaincy Affairs organize a meeting, Honorable Oke Obodo. We had in attendance nearly 200 royal fathers, and the issue at stake was to explain to them that in each of their communities, they are actually the chief security officers. And so this message of the Enugu State Security Trust Fund takes root in their communities, how they can support. And of course, we're asking everyone to make a contribution towards the trust fund, but at the same time, you can contribute in kind, like organizing your communities, like understanding who are the people that actually have been determined to be part of the vigilante groups. Are they people of integrity and character that you trust? Or are we perhaps inviting criminality by making all the bad eggs in the village to be the part of the vigilante? Those are some of the messages we exchanged. And then we also got feedback from the royal fathers in terms of where it hurts the most. What are the challenges they see and what are the areas of development government can do, particularly opening up the roads so that people can get information across to the center once there's a problem. It was a very interactive session, and I have to say that I came away feeling re-energized about, what we are building, to have a security structure where the citizens themselves take ownership. And it wasn't just the royal fathers. I also interacted with all the chairmen of all the local governments of the state. So I met with the Algon chairman and his team. I also met with the Speaker of the House of Assembly and all the members of the House, to get the same message across. And last but not the least, I met with all the religious leaders. I met with the EXCO of the Christian Christian Association of Nigeria, as well as Bishop Onaga himself, the Bishop of the Catholic Diocese in Enugu. So the message continues to resonate to get to all facets of the state, and people to recognize the need that in this new era, where we are fortunate to have a governor that is, we all have to keep.
Our time is a little fast spent, and I really have a few things that I needed to get you to respond to. When it comes to the Southeast and this stakeholders meeting, trying to meet with traditional rulers, religious leaders, it is one of those steps taken by at least the Enugu state government to ensure that insecurity in the state is brought down to its barest minimum. What we're hearing from other people and other states, like Senator Orji Okalu, for instance, he's proposing that all the roadblocks should be removed, and that the security agents that are sent to handle insecurity in the Southeast should employ intelligence-based methods and remove these roadblocks and put in the army everywhere. I want to get what you think about that proposition by Orji Okalu.
I think that's actually an excellent idea in some respects. The roadblocks themselves are causing problems in multiple ways. Aside from the huge cost of logistics that is as imposed on the Southeast, the average road, maybe in a 5-kilometer stretch, you have 20 roadblocks. That takes a truck, probably 5 times as long to go just 5 kilometers. There's a cost to logistics, which makes business cost of goods and services more expensive. There's a cost to the road infrastructure itself. Because of the roadblocks, cars are piled up on roads that are not designed to have stationary weight. Roads are designed for movement. But when you park trucks on them and they're dripping oil, the oil actually damages the asphalt, and then all the way the road then crumbles. And people wonder, oh, this road was just built 2 years ago, why did it crumble? It's actually because of the roadblocks. And the third one is accidents. There's this horrible accident that happened in Ugu Onyama just a week ago in Enugu. And that was caused primarily because of a roadblock. The military apparently had put up a roadblock on a very steep part of the road, and the brake failed. And then it hit other cars parked in front of it. And in no time, the petrol came out and exploded, and people were trapped in their cars. And we've had this sort of incidences happen more and more. Now, if you think about it, with technology today, you can organize a fleet of drones from your command and control center to monitor all the major arteries. Because the most important thing is not the roadblocks. The most important thing is to recognize when an incident is happening. And most incidents, if you can arrest it in 5 to 10 minutes of occurrence, you have more chances of solving that problem. And I think that there are some places perhaps where you need roadblocks, for sure, particularly when you're looking for potential criminals who have already made an escape. But there are other areas where you need technology and intelligence to actually forestall those problems. But in the Southeast, what the senator was actually explaining, you can be on a stretch of a road, you can see where you're going for the next 5 kilometers, and there are actually 10 roadblocks you can see in front of you. That does not make any sense, and that's the fact of it.
There was something you touched on earlier. You touched on the IPOB problem, the ESN situation. Of course, we've seen recent stories where they have been proscribed, reaffirming the proscription of these groups. But the impact it has had on the Southeast, I want to be able to get from you at least how Enugu is handling that situation with IPOB and ESN and all of that. And juxtaposing with what Soludo said, many people have been asking for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. And Governor Soludo of Anambra State, he said, removing him is not, releasing him rather, is not going to reduce the insecurity in this region. IPOB fired back, of course. I said, no, if you release him, the insecurity will reduce. Talk to us a little bit about the IPOB dynamic in the Southeast and how the Enugu state government was able to handle that, and what should be done, in your view, to, handle the situation in the rest of the Southeast?
I mean, I think the starting point of the IPOB dynamic is leadership, and where prior to the recent crop of governors coming in, we had leaders that perhaps had not really taken their role very seriously. It was easy for that vacuum of lack of direction to be taken in. And you also recognize when you come in as a leader, you have to work extremely hard, because as hard as you're working, there are other competing forces that may pull you back. And if you think about IPOB, some of the challenges we faced as Nigeria, 2016 recession, and as we are coming out of that, we had COVID in 2020, and then suddenly, boom, they announced the sit-at-home crisis in 2021. And if you were not working hard to overcome some of those negative external factors, you could find yourself in that situation.
Honestly.
But in the situation with IPOB, I mean, I think there's enough evidence to show that there's quite an element of criminality involved, which may lead to what Soludo was saying, that even if you release Nnamdi Kanu, it may still continue. Because
I think there is my apologies for butting in. I think the morning tells the day. You're just 1 year in office, you said.
Correct.
Well, Innocent Azil seems to be happy with you. On X says, congratulations to you and your team. Can he let us understand how the command and control covers the rest of the communities of the state capital outside Enugu to overlook areas such as far-flung Augu and Aneri local government communities? I hope there is a website that people can go to, because we're out of time. Yes,
there's a website. People can go to www.ESSTF.ng.
Okay.
Yep.
Innocent, you and the rest of you, please just go get all the information there. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Ike Chioke is the chairman of the Enugu State Security Trust Fund. Thank you again for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Ayo, for having me.